Alrighty guys, it's been a very long time since my last, Savvy lecture video or whatever. But I never really got to complete this series, and I really want to get back to completing it. So this episode is going to be the most important one that I never got to, which is pushing. This is the most important thing, because pushing, even if you slow play, at some point you have to enter a site. You can't like just shift into a site. You have to take it fast before they can rotate. Like, alright, even if we're slow playing, we're shifting. And, whatever, we get a pick or two, and it's like 2 versus 2, say that. We can't just shift into the site, take out the backstairs, and then keep shifting. Because, obviously, for one, it's 2 versus 2. We know the guy is not at 2, he's probably at 1 or mid, right? So we should obviously push in. But the thing is, even if it's like a 5v5, you can't just shift into a site. Like, once you decide, hey, we're going into the site, you gotta just go in. You can't just... As soon as you see an enemy, you have to shoot and then run it. You can't just shoot and then just shift around. It's not going to work. I mean, it's just so obvious it's not going to work. So pushing is important. I mean, you can even push from the beginning of a round, like, hey, everybody rush to you, rush, push, or you can push from slow play. You always have to end at pushing. Pushing is the most important thing in the game. So we're going to go over a few things here with pushing. With pushing, there's a few important things, and that is, 1, everybody goes in, okay? So you can't, well, when I say everybody, I mean at least 4 people. There might be one person that's watching the back, but I think it's kind of stupid personally. Because if you're pushing, you want to have a dedicated everybody going forward. The idea is, no matter, the enemy is camping, they're not pushing, so they probably have a better position. They might be, crouching right here. So they're crouching, they're standing still, they're not moving. On the other hand, you have to be moving, so your crosshairs obviously, like my pair just did, right? So you have a few issues there. But the thing is, you have so many more people than the enemy that you should be able to, in theory, take out, however many people are watching. So the idea of pushing is just, A, overwhelming the enemy with numbers, surprise, and forces. You don't want to push when they know you're going to push. If they think you're going 2, you want to go back to 1. You can't push a site that they know you're going to go. So that's surprise. You have to have surprise, and you have to have numbers. You should hopefully have more people pushing than they do at their site. You can't do a push with 2 people if the enemy has 5 people. Because, that's why you got to get picks first, which I'll go over in a second. Because if you have a disadvantage in numbers, say you have 2 people and they have 5 people, and we try to push 2, the 2 of us. Well, they have at least 2 people at each site, right? They probably have like 3 people at 2, because 2 is more common in this map. Well, 2 versus 3, it's not really a push, because you have less people. So, if you're at a number disadvantage already from when you're slow playing, you need to get picks, so that you have at least, 4v3 situation. The enemy has 4, you have 3. Well, then you can push 2 with your 3 people, because they're not going to have all 4 people on the same site unless they know for sure you're going there, which goes back to the other rule that they can't know where you're going. They have to have their team spread out. They can't have everybody on one site and then you push that site. That's stupid. That's just hey, here we are and we're all just going to rush at you when you know exactly what we're doing. Well, that's not the point of a push. A push is surprise, numbers. All right, 2 important things. Now, how to execute a push. Everybody has to go in at once. This is what you can't do. A lot of people like to do this, I don't know why. They'll go like, hey, I'm the first person. Boom. Well, they get 1 HP. This is what they do. I'm going to run back behind everybody and reload and watch the back. Okay, we're pushing, you're supposed to die. If you're 1 HP, either keep going or peek behind a wall, let your teammate that was behind you, because you're pushing, right? He's right behind you. And then come around the corner. You don't run away. I mean, even if you're reloading, you still go forward. With a push, you go forward. It's a dedicated thing. You have your mind made up. I will die, or we will get to our objective. It's not, hey, let's run away. Running away is terrible. The other thing you need to know is, obviously, don't line up with your teammates. Okay, say we're all going to push in 2. Well, for one thing, you either have 1 person go this way or have no person go that way. Generally, no one. So you usually have 2 or 3 people going in this door on this map, for example. This is just an example. You don't want to line everybody up. You don't want to have 1 and 2 people in a row. Well, then the enemy who's camping has a better position because he's not pushing. He can wait for you. Remember, you're supposed to have numbers, right? Well, even if you have more numbers, if you line up, he can just kill you both at once. So it's kind of like a 1 versus 1, but he's got a better position. It takes away the number advantage if you line up. You have to use your numbers correctly. So far we have, you need more numbers than the enemy. You need to have the surprise on the enemy, and you need to use your numbers effectively. The other thing you need to be able to do is kind of like, it's better if you know where the enemy is, like you have a gist of where they are before you push, obviously. So like, you don't want to give away your position by throwing like 5,000 nades, but I mean, like, say 30 seconds before you push, you might want to throw a flash nade in this door, see if you get a call out from the guy backstairs, and you can be like, oh hey, for whenever we decide to go 2, there's a guy backstairs. You don't peek him, man. you know, I mean, that's a different idea. But then, you know, 30 seconds later, whenever you push, you need to remember, hey, did I see anybody on radar? Did somebody die? Did anybody call out a nade? Do we know anything about where they are, where they could be? Well, they're more than likely, they might have changed their position, but more than likely they'll be in the same spot. So you need to know that. The other thing that we talked about was surprise, right? So you don't want to, you know, hey guys, before you push 2, everybody throw nades and then push. That's a terrible idea because it's like the enemy sees, you know,
Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole!
3 nades. They hear a bunch of nades. Well, what do you think they're gonna expect? They're like, we just had, you know, 6 nades or something hit over by 2. I doubt, you know, obviously they're going to. So you don't want to throw a whole bunch of nades before you push. That's not to say while you're pushing, like if 4 people are pushing backstairs and this guy wants to go around this way, he might want to nade like this, which
Fire in the hole!
clears this way, right? So that's not to say you don't throw a nade while you're pushing, but you don't throw a nade before you're pushing. You can throw a nade after or during a push, but you should have a reason to do it. Like during a push, you don't want to, you know, be like the second guy going in and pull out a nade and run in there, because you're gonna die. Remember, the enemy has a better position. The enemy knows, he doesn't know you're coming, but why just lag there? But a good enemy will, a good defensive player will always expect the enemy to come from any direction. So he will be expecting you. And, you know, there's not really, he doesn't know that you're coming for sure, that's a thing, but he thinks you're coming. He always thinks that you're coming. He always assumes that you're coming. So you don't want to be careless and throw nades. You have to have a specific reason, like I said, like clearing out a push route. You don't just throw nades for no reason. Alright. So you need numbers, you need surprise, and I told you how to use numbers and how to use surprise. When you push, there's also a few other important things, and that is pay attention to the bomb. The bomb person, I do not personally think they should be last, because if they're last, sure, everybody dies, the last person alive, but also if they're last, you know, they might not get into the site completely. Like, say we're pushing, 1 person, 2 person, 3 people get down, and I'm going through. I just lost connection. Well, and I teleported really badly. Area servers, guys. Area servers. Well, anyway, if the last person is going through, somebody rotating, say, from middle might drop down and be able to pick them off. I personally think they're liable to get picked off. So I would say the person in the middle should have the bomb because they're not liable to die, likely to die from the first person. They're not likely to die from any rotators. So the middle person is usually the safest person with the bomb. The only other thing I can say is, like I said, keep pushing if you're lit. Keep prepared to die. Make up your mind if you want to push or not. Don't give away your position. Have surprise. Have numbers. The only other thing I would say is just make sure if you have a high recoil gun like Para, don't get into the habit of jumping around corners, because obviously, well, if you're pushing, it's better just to keep running like this or just to crouch. You don't want to jump just because you're pushing. You know? The only other thing is, you know, obviously plant the bomb as soon as you can. That's the whole point of pushing, is planting the bomb. And the only other thing is, after you get the site, it's not like, whew, we got the site, I'm just gonna chill here. You gotta remember, look, there's probably enemies rotating, right? You didn't rush a site where there was like nobody else left. That if there was nobody else left and there's 2 guys at a site, you should have went to the other site to begin with. So there's obviously people rotating. So you need to constantly pay attention, even when you get the site. Is like while you're planning. While you're planning, you want to do something smart, like do this, where you can see if they come in door right, door left. You want to plant in a way that you can see. Don't just expect your teammates to cover for you. Even if you're planning, you want to be in a way that you can watch what's going on around you. Or maybe if you know that they're coming from the left and not from the vent or from the right, but you just know that they dropped down from control and it was only 1 guy, you want to plant in a strategic position where he can't see you. If you're a teammate and then not the planner guy, you don't want to, like, while he's planning, oh, during that push I lost the ammo, I'm going to reload. Well, then he's got nobody covering him. There's a guy rotating. It's not a great idea. You know, you need to say, hey, before you plant, let me reload. Well, then you reload as if you're planning, and he covers you as if you're the planter, and then he goes back to plant while you're planting. You get the idea. And from there, it's just, you know, holding the bomb site after plant. It doesn't have anything to do with pushing. The only other few things I would say about pushing is, there's something else I wanted to say. What was it? We got the numbers. We got the numbers. Mind blank. Okay, we got numbers, and we have surprise, and we have after plant, grenade, all that stuff. What else was there? Or something else important? Alright, right. When you're pushing, you always want to, if you don't know where the enemy is, you want to expect them to be everywhere. Like, if I was going to push, I would expect an enemy to be here, I would expect an enemy to be here, here. You know, you just want to expect an enemy around every single corner you turn. I mean, this is a weird position, but say I'm pushing in the 2 from here, I would expect an enemy to be here, and I would be ready for them. I'd expect an enemy to be here, I'd be ready for them. I'd expect an enemy. This doesn't specifically have to do with pushing, but it really helps when you're pushing, is just always expect an enemy everywhere. You have to expect enemies around you in every single thing you do in AVA. In any shooting game, it's just always expect an enemy. If you know it's a 1v1, you don't expect an enemy to be there, right? That's fine. But if you know where he is. If you don't know where the enemy is, even if it's just one person, you expect him to be everywhere. Because then, if I expect an enemy to be backstairs, and he just happens to be backstairs, guess what? My crosshair's already there. I'm already mentally prepared to shoot him. Whereas, say, if I'm like, oh, he might be at 1, I'm just gonna, and he's backstairs, yeah, that person probably died. This person, me, right here, expecting him, probably won that. So that's very important. The only other non-exactly pushing, but still helpful thing that I can think of right now is that you want to be mentally ready. Like I said, you want to be physically ready. You don't want to do all that, but then at the same time, you don't want to be like too focused. You don't want to be like, okay, there's gonna be an enemy here, there's gonna be an enemy there, I'm gonna push, I gotta go for it. Well then, you know, you're not paying attention to your surroundings. So you might have a teammate who dies outside, and you can see on radar the enemy's lit and is trying to flank you guys. Like there was a guy over there that didn't peek late or something happened. You have to be paying attention to everything going around on radar, you know, the whole radar on the upper left corner, what's going on in front of you. You have to know what's going on in front of you, know what's going on radar, expect enemies everywhere. You have to have the number advantage, you have to have surprise advantage, you have to know what the enemy's thinking, try to figure out where they were from, calls, teammates, nades, you know, anything earlier past situations, know if they're lit, know if they're not lit, know how many of them are, know how many teammates you are, be aware maybe of what gun they're using, what guns your teammate has. Don't line up with your teammates. Use effectively friendly fire. The worst thing you can do is shoot your teammates, so you don't want to do that. You have to be aware of all these things, and that is pushing. Pushing is the ultimatum of AVA. If you can push, you can do anything. Because look, if you can push, you could just slow play. Even if your slow play is crap and you can't get picks, like your team can't get picks, well then you could still push any time. In slow playing, even if you can't get picks, you can figure out where the enemy is, so your pushing would still be effective with slow play. Or you could just push by yourself, obviously, without doing any slow play. Like, if you can push, you can do anything in the game. If you can't push, then you can't push, you know, from the beginning, so you have to slow play. And how can you slow play if you can't push, right? So pushing is AVA. If you can push, you can win, no matter what. I mean, pushing is basically the most important skill a clan can learn, I would say. It's even more important than aiming. If you can push together, you should have the number advantage and the surprise. So, I mean, even if the first person dies, the first person here should probably have high recoil if they use a gun like Para, then boom, boom, boom. Recoil is really high. And they might expect another person, but there's ammo and there's, you know what I mean? Like, it just helps to have numbers. So pushing is just a huge, huge thing, right? So that's how to push. I'm going to be doing a couple other guides. I wanted to do like rotating. I think I wanted to do mindset and communications, proper calls, stuff like that. I'm going to get to those. But this is like, you know, the continuation of Savvy's Lecture Time. It is back. I will be making more map specific tip videos again if I don't keep seeing like you see right here. Alright, well, see you later guys.